Fat, what is it? Why is it? Where is it? We all have a relationship with fat because we have some. Even if you're really skinny, you still got fat, and you've still got the potential to have that fat. So fat gets laid down, but it has to be supported within a network. And so it's this network that I find really interesting, because the network is a network of collagen fibers. You can't just have fat floating around. You have to have fat cells, and the fat cells expand to accommodate the energy that you put into it. Now, whether that comes from sugar, whether that comes from fat, that's another subject. But the fat cells expanding have to be supported in a framework, like a mesh, like a net. So I always say that if you imagine those one of those bottle things that you get at the airport that hold the bottle in place, the nets, and you laid that in butter and then you lifted it up, that would be the sort of the supporting network. And that net in our body is collagen. It's, when it's dissected out, it's called the superficial fascia. The problem that we've had is that we think of this as a separate layer, and it's not. So those fibers of the superficial fascia are attached to the underside of the skin. When we peel the skin away, what we see is circles that get left behind. Those circles aren't circles, they're just the site that the fibers of the superficial fascia that were holding the fat cells in place were attached to. When it goes down, it hits the deep fascia, so the fibers of the superficial fascia become the fibers of the deep fascia, the aponeurosis, the epi layer that sits around the muscle, and those fibers then become the smaller fibers, and so on and so forth. So effectively, the skin that you have when you pick the skin up attaches to fibers of superficial fascia, which encases our adipose cells and drops down and becomes the attachment of the bone, if you like. So fat is functional. Fat is a functional layer, and it's one of those things that we sort of don't really fully understand, or we don't fully embrace, or we don't fully really think about when we're actually touching somebody. We don't go, I'm touching their fat, but that's actually what we are touching, more than muscle. So the whole layer in here is a really interesting layer, and it's something that I spend time on, but it's not a layer. And I think this has been the problem that I've been dealing with in the past, is the dissection of the skin, the dissection of the superficial fascia, and then the revealing of the deep fascia as somehow being separate layers, and they're not. And so that's what I want to do, is rehabilitate that connection and that join up. So fat is functional, fat is occupying a space, but the thing that's holding it in place is collagenous, and that's fascia, exactly the same as everything else.